Mayor, we're ready.
Okay, all right, everybody in? All right, welcome everyone. This is the June 14th, 2021 Town Council meeting for the town of Kensington. Happy Flag Day, everyone. So we're gonna get started with a call to order. And the first item on the agenda is the moment of silence. This is an opportunity if you have someone you want to for us to lift up in our thoughts. Please let me know. I do have a couple of announcements. I want to lift up Allison Oppenheim on Armory Avenue. Her father recently passed away. Her husband, John, I understand his mother is very ill. So keep both Allison and John in your thoughts and prayers. Jaro Vostal, his mother passed away. Jaro's on Frederick Avenue. I'd like to also lift up the families of the WJ students that were killed in West Virginia. I believe it was two high school graduates, and then 2 additional graduates were injured. So please keep those families in your thoughts and prayers. And then some good news that Julie O'Malley on Frederick Avenue is recovering from her recent surgery, and she's doing well. Is there anyone else someone would like to lift up before we have our moment of silence? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. So if you could just bow your heads for a moment. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the May 10th meeting. Council, you all received the minutes earlier today. I don't think I saw any amendments or edits. So if unless someone found something recently, we just need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve the May council meeting minutes.
Okay, is there a second? Bridget, was that a second?
Yep.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move down to the from the mayor and the town council and just announcements. I think everyone knows this already, but this is for the public record. The town of Kensington held their election on June 7th. And there were 2 council seats up and 3 candidates, and the incumbents, Darren Bartram and Connor Crimmins, were reelected. I want to thank Tim Willard for his campaign. He did an outstanding job and keeping it positive and bringing up some issues that were important to him and other members of our community. And I'm very happy to say that Tim emailed me today and asked about being put on the Greenscape committee. So he wants to remain active. And so so I've been happy to add him to that group. We had 387 ballots that were cast, 127 were absentee. And so the rest were in person. And I'm happy to say that the people that came in person, and I think a couple of the council members may have voted absentee, but everyone came. It was people were very excited to be back together and greeting their neighbors. So it was a very positive evening for the town residents. So that's all I've got on the election, and we can move on to B, which is the Thrive 2050 Neighborhood Coalition. You all, there's 2 items on that. We need to approve a draft letter that's going to be sent to the county council. I also want to let everyone know that I will be leaving the meeting at 7:30. The Thrive 2050 Coalition, of which the town of Kensington is a member of, is receiving the Sentinel Award with the town of Chevy Chase and the Woodside Civic Association, as well as the Saratoga Village Neighbors Association for our work that we've done in for the coalition. So in bringing Thrive 2050 to everyone's attention, and we've had a positive effect. So I'm happy to receive the award on everyone's behalf. And let's see, so everyone has received the letter. Connor, do you want to address that, or?
Sure. So there's actually two important things that happened just recently. One is the draft letter that everybody has a copy of. This is the current draft. It is proposed to go out to the county council as they are receiving their 2 hearings on Thrive, of which the town is now going to be providing testimony at the June 29th date of the hearing. But this letter works to encapsulate the 7 major modifications that our coalition is looking for with regard to Thrive. There are the bullet points at the top, and there's more detail provided below. I hope everybody's had a chance to read it, but these are the kind of the cornerstones of why we have some deep concerns with the current Thrive document, the way it's written, that it's lacking a little bit of a focus on economic competitiveness and driving jobs creation as opposed to housing, which even our Economic Development Corp will tell you that it's jobs that drive housing and not the other way around. The focus on the master and sector plans, that is how you should be instituting zoning changes, not a one size fits all, and that zoning should be compatible with the built infrastructure around it. And this is one that I know I've mentioned many times, that they've stripped away, especially within the R60, the residential areas like the town of Kensington, they've stripped away all of the zoning compatibility standards and make a lot of the infill development by right, which, what we go on to say in this letter, which we've espoused, is, we believe in many of the tenets of adding additional housing units, especially things that are more attainable or more affordable, but not by destroying the current fabric of our community. And so things like heights, lot coverage, setbacks, those are important to maintaining. And so we've asked that they revisit that. And I started by saying there were 2 important things that had happened as well. The other is that the county executive issued his memorandum in response to the current Thrive and the current Affordable Housing Strategy Initiative document. And his rather lengthy, I think it's about 12-page long letter, echoes many of the same points that we have been making through our coalition letters, that things like zoning need to be compatible, that we need to drive jobs and economic development, that we have to find real strategies for affordable housing, not just attainable housing. And that, what distresses him and has distressed most of us is that what we found through this is that the county's strategies of missing middle housing and attainable housing don't actually develop more affordable housing. And in fact, the county's 2 plans that they've helped put forth, one being the Silver Spring, one in support of the Silver Springs sector plan, showed that 2 townhouses that would be the only types of missing middle housing available in that area would go for somewhere between $715,000 to $855,000. And likewise down in Chevy Chase, the only type of missing middle housing that fits within the fabric of Chevy Chase is a triplex, where the developer themselves, which was EYA, said that triplex would cost somewhere in the vicinity of about $875,000. So the idea that these are affordable is, I'm not being flippant, it's laughable. But the idea that it's even attainable is beyond a stretch. And so I was pleased to see that the county executive's letter echoed a lot of the same points that we have been championing through the coalition letters. This is the most recent one, and I hope that everybody will support signing on to it on behalf of the town and on behalf of the other 23 jurisdictions.
Council, do you have any questions? Let's see. So, if somebody would like, does anyone on the Zoom have a question regarding this letter or this issue?
Council, Mayor Furman, I do. This is Joe Campbell. I commend the authors of the letter. I thought it was very well written. and comprehensive. I just wonder if perhaps some of the core concerns of Kensington might be given more prominence and emphasis in the letter. And I know, Connor, that you and others have discussed the turning the MARC station into essentially a metro station for purposes of affordable housing as a real concern. I wonder if that might be among the points that would be given more prominence in the letter.
Well, we can actually write our own letter as well as signing on to this coalition letter. So I see your point, Joe. So we could consider doing one that's more tailored to our needs. But I think it's a coalition letter. If all the 26 communities tried to pull something for them, it would be a very long letter.
Can I just ask that there's clarification on that point? I know this was brought up during the campaign, this past campaign, this idea that the MARC station was going to be turned into a metro. I mean, Connor or whoever has the most knowledge on this, can you explain that idea? Because I don't actually think that is what is being proposed. It's about zoning it in a way that would allow, equating it to a metro station, not actually turning it into a metro station. I think it's important to clarify this here because it's
correct.
It's like a little bit of whisper down the lane, and I think that we're getting a little bit out of control with what that is. But for the record, I really support the letter as drafted, and I think that it's really excellently written. I think it hits all the major points that we want to do, but I think this point needs to be clarified.
Agreed, Nate, and to you and to Joe Campbell for raising it. I want to clarify it. It came up. It was a point of conversation a couple times, but what happened, and this goes to the central theme of the county executive's letter, is that in the midst of this pandemic, trying to get a general plan revised has spurred all sorts of other different policy plans to implement it, even though it itself, Thrive 2050, has not been fully vetted, publicly reviewed, or approved by the county council. And one of the things that happened at the early stage in the early drafts of the Thrive general plan revision was that a Montgomery County council member, Will Jawando, introduced a potential zoning text amendment that aimed at trying to identify the area within a half-mile of a metro station and a 1-mile radius of a metro station for additional density and additional infill development, and focusing that development around missing middle housing. When that was put forward, some of the language around the missing middle concept, which was already in Thrive, they started to blend and ideas started to blend together. And then there was talk of, well, in Thrive, we should adopt some of that similar language and broaden the aperture on the areas where we're looking for missing middle housing. Originally, it was predominantly to be around metro, the bus rapid transit areas, and then there was discussion of including it around the Purple Line, and then there was discussion about broadening it even further to be around MARC stations, essentially all forms of transit. But all forms of transit are not the same. And so this is where things were, if you're just looking at densification around metro, then and within the greater 1 mile of metro, then the town of Kensington is not within those overlays. We fall outside of that. But the moment you open the aperture and you start to say things like BRT or MARC, well, clearly MARC, you take a half-mile of MARC, that's our whole town. But the issue is that MARC and metro are not the same, right? The riderships, the sheer volume that they move just aren't the same. I think, Darren, you brought up the numbers. It's something like 200 total riders on MARC daily at the Kensington station. That is incomparable to the transit that they were trying to focus on in this connected corridors concept. And so what we've, through the coalition and through other letters trying to focus on is there's a very, very different urbanization, urban locality that is around a metro station than it is around a MARC station, and they shouldn't be equated to be the same. And so that is one point that we've pushed really hard on behalf of the town is you cannot consider MARC to be the same as metro.
I'll add 2 points unless Nate, you wanted to respond. The first point is, as Connor said, that the numbers are simply not the same. And I think the whole strategy behind increasing density around mass transit is you raise the possibility that either somebody can be car free, or at least the car will stay where it's parked and somebody can ride mass transit to work. I've tried using Mark myself, and it just doesn't work for my commute because I work on the other side of town from where it rolls in. So, until Mark gets to the point of having bi-directional service, weekend service, midday service, I just don't see how it could possibly be lumped in. Because if the idea behind centering things around mass transit includes Mark, well, there are bus lines that have ridership comparable to or greater than Mark, and we might as well just throw the entire county into this. And if the county council and the county executive want to do that, it's a political decision for them. But I do not believe that that's something that we should be supporting. And then just the second point to Joe Campbell's comment. Certainly, we can write a letter, but I would like to explore the possibility of a maybe like a Mark municipality letter that points out the limitations, the current limitations of Mark, and maybe get a little more juice from having a coalition, a different coalition from the one we're talking about now.
Okay. Well, we are going to do, Connor, did you get a space now? I know you were on the waiting list for testifying because this could be part of our testimony.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, just today, we were moved off the waiting list and into a testimony space for the 29th.
Good. Okay. Because then you can get more into how it affects the town as well. So.
I believe we're going to get 2 minutes. So I am going to practice how fast I can speak.
Okay. Joe, you've got your hand up. Did you have one more comment?
I did. And I just wanted to thank Councilmember Crimmins for a very thorough rundown and explanation about that. And I think a more felicitous phrase that I should have used was treating as if it were a metro station rather than turning it into a metro station. But the distinction, as was clear from Connor Crimmins' comments, is pretty obscure. So, but thank you, Mayor Furman.
Okay, good. All right. So unless I see any other hands, and I don't, if we could make a motion.
I make a motion that the town sign on to the coalition letter regarding Thrive Montgomery 2050, dated June 25th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? See hands?
Aye.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So my meeting is at 7:30. It's 7:22, so I can stay on a little bit longer, but I'm actually going to turn the meeting over to Darren, who's our Mayor Pro Tem, and I will stay on as long as I can, but I'll let Darren, because we're going into the variance for 10221 Montgomery Avenue, and I would not want to start the conversation and then just have to pop up. So so Darren, I will let you do this. I don't know if you want Matt to open it up, or you could do that as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask whether Matt wanted to sort of lay the groundwork for the variance, and then we can hear from the applicants and council and then public.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Council, before you this evening is a variance from the residents at 10221 Montgomery Avenue for an encroachment of 3 feet into a 10-foot side yard setback for a dwelling on land zoned for single family use. The resident, Bruce Caswell, is here this evening, along with the architect, Lauren Clark, who will provide the information for you on the variance request.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Clark. I'm an architect with GTM Architects. So I guess I would just like to provide an overall summary of this project by saying that the overarching goal from the beginning, even though the project has transformed, has been to provide the owners, Bruce and Lauren, with more usable space in a way that is the least obtrusive. So their existing garage is in desperate need of renovation work. It's also quite small. It is smaller than 2 standard parking spaces, making it very difficult to use. So the project started with a couple of additions to the garage and raising the height by 16 inches in order to get a car lift in there. And we needed to seek approval from not only the HPC, but actually from the Board of Appeals in order to raise that height because it was a non-conforming garage and actually oversteps the side lot line by a few inches. So we've gotten approvals for the additions and for the building height. We've received our building permit as of last week for that project. We have also received approval from Historic Preservation to rebuild the foundation at the rear of the house, which is currently a crawl space. The idea is to put a full height basement underneath what was an addition in the mid-90s. And then to underpin the foundation of the existing house to turn the existing cellar into usable space. So there is, other than the small addition to the side and to the rear of the existing garage, no visible alterations proposed for the house or for the garage. So the variance portion of this project comes from an addition that we would like to put on the main house purely below grade. And again, it's really to maximize the garage space available to us. There's just so little existing, and we can't really expand the footprint. So you can see from the basement plan that in order to get a car using a lift from grade to get a car down to basement level, we really couldn't get that car out of the garage with any less space than we have proposed. And that's really what's driving the request and the need for the 3-foot variance.
Lauren, can I take a moment and maybe make just a couple of quick comments? If
Please.
that's all right. I appreciate that introduction. My wife, Lauren Dykeman, and I have lived in Kensington for 26 years. Many of you will know that we lived for many years on the corner of Montgomery Avenue and Kensington Parkway. And we've always lived in historic homes and tried to invest in those homes and leave them better than we found them. We've also tried to follow at every step of the way, obviously, all the requirements related to maintaining historic properties. The nature of the conundrum that we have here in terms of wanting to expand the usable space of our house led us to now go underground to expand, and because we don't want to change the visual character of the lot at all. I think 2 things to remember, as Lauren has said, when this project is done, it should look no different than it presently does, except the garage will have been renovated and will look much better. And I think that's a good investment in historic property. And the second thing, because I know there's concerns about stormwater runoff, is that there should be no greater impermeable surface added to our driveway area than is presently the case. And in the last several years, we've had significant rain events in Kensington that have overwhelmed the capacity of the drainage that the town provides, the storm sewers that the town provides, particularly right in front of our house. Our house happens to collect all the water from our side of Circle Manor, as well as a great deal of the water from Mackie Barch's house on down. And in fact, our neighbor's driveway washed out last year, and a lot of it ended up in my driveway. So I want to commend first the town, and in particular Matt Hoffman, for taking action and this spring augmenting and increasing the capacity of the existing storm drains, and then also having the foresight to re-pour the aprons at my driveway and Wendy Miller's driveway, which directly adjoins our house, now with the appropriate probably 2.5 inch lip that can keep the water in the street and flowing into the storm sewer and not overrunning and running down our driveway and creating stormwater management issues for ourselves and our neighbors. As a consequence, we think that the water that will exist on our property will be native to that property, not coming from a lot of other places. And consequently, we have capacity with existing dry wells that we've invested in on the property to capture that water and mitigate any further movement of it down toward the creek and across our neighbor's property, which is an issue that we take very seriously. I was really pleased that Wendy Miller was willing to have her driveway augmented as well, because my sense is that it's the water that traverses her property that also impacts the situation, downhill from us. So with all that said, this is a project that is entirely subterranean for what we're requesting the variance on. You'll notice no difference when it's completed, and we're taking the issue of stormwater management very seriously.
Hi, is this the time for the public to speak? So right, if I ask a question.
Why don't we hold off? We'll hear from the council first, and then
Okay.
we'll open it to the public.
That sounds fine.
So does anybody from the council want to ask questions or give feedback? Dr. Tracy, now it's your turn.
Great, thank you. I appreciate what the family has done to try to mitigate the water issues, but I see that Beth Pierce is also on the call tonight. And I know that the drainage problems still exist for our two properties, which are in downhill. And the problems really started when the pool came in, and I can't imagine that the drains in the city were any worse before the pool was put in versus after the pool was put in. It is better. We've had to put in extensive drains in our property to try to handle the water runoff, and hopefully Beth can speak to what she's accomplished. What I'm concerned about is this is essentially digging another basement, as I understand it. So there is going to be subterranean, there is going to be movement of the water. So it's not just expansion of the footprint of the garage, but there's also the displacement of the earth and the creation of a change in the water drain. So I don't know if these dry wells that you mentioned are going to handle this, or if there's additional remedies that are being put into place. But I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that, because that's been a real major concern for those of us downhill.
Sure, Cindy. Maybe I'll take a moment, and Beth, I don't want to.
Let's just give Beth a chance to.
Oh, that's fine. I'm sorry. Cindy said she wanted to hear more about it, so my apologies. Please, Beth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. As Cindy said, her family and my family, we've spent really thousands and thousands of dollars over the last 4 to 5 years trying to remedy the problem of the water flowing from uphill onto our properties. I've spent several $1,000s repointing the inside of my basement. I've spent hundreds of hours with a wheelbarrow and a shovel moving dirt in the backyard. I put in French drains, and I'm familiar with the kinds of water problems that can be caused by significant ground displacement. So while I appreciate there is no plan to change the exterior of the house and the way it looks, I would like some confidence that the architect and the contractor are making priority number one, not exacerbating the serious drainage problems that currently exist, because it's expensive to correct these problems repeatedly. So I just like confidence that the architect and the contractor have made that priority number one, that during the construction and after the construction, that we're not going to see a profound increase in water flowing over the downhill properties. So that's it.
All right, so Bruce and Lauren want to try to. address that?
I would just like to say that as a condition of the building permit, we will be required to provide an engineered sediment control plan. So we have started consulting with a civil engineer, and we plan to work through the issues that you're concerned about, to get to a place where the county is able to approve the project as well. So we certainly intend to implement strategies, including but not limited to trench drains and dry wells. And I'd also just like to note that the plans in their current state are very, very basic, and they don't show any of these strategies, and also they indicate a larger area of impermeable surface than we will end up with at the end. I know that Bruce and Lauren feel strongly about having planting areas, and that's just not shown on this plan. So we certainly have work to do to get to a final drainage and sediment control strategy, but it is at the top of our list and required for building permit, which is important.
I would only add, Beth and Cindy, I appreciate your concerns. I take them very seriously. I kind of wish that we could be having this conversation in a forum other than this council meeting, and because I think we've had opportunities to do that haven't been taken. That notwithstanding, we've spent tens of thousands of dollars already on dry wells in this property. Going back to when Pete was mayor and we had an incident where the entire backyard of our house turned into a lake when the town's infrastructure was overwhelmed. I do think that the town's infrastructure has been improved. What caused it to be overwhelmed that first time was a clog at the 90-degree junction at Montgomery Avenue and Kent Street, where the pipe turns and goes down the hill by Harry McPherson's old house. And when that got cleared out, that whole system now has been put on a maintenance schedule so that it'll get cleared out with regularity. Because one of my concerns when the town increased the capacity of the storm sewer that collects the water from Circle Manor was that we were just going to further exacerbate the problem. More water would come to a single point and it would overwhelm it again. So in talking with Matt, I think the town is totally on top of that. I think the contractor did great work. Thankfully, we haven't yet had a storm of that magnitude to test it, but it is the kind of thing that keeps us up at night all the time. I mean, literally, I can tell you about evenings when it's raining hard and Lauren stands in the window looking into the backyard, wondering what's happening to Cindy's place and your place. And your place is just below Wendy's too. So Wendy's house is part of this really as well, just for the council's benefit. That's why, for example, just the basic act of fixing the apron on Wendy's driveway was so important to try to keep more water from coming to Beth. So you have my commitment that we'll continue not just to make this a number one priority, but to invest in the solution. I've thought for many years that a solution could include trenching and burying a pipe between the Palmer property and the Tracy property that could capture water and take it down right between the properties. And then it would never, it wouldn't help your property, Beth, but it might solve this situation with the Palmer and Tracy properties. And I'd be happy, to spearhead that investment effort as well. So this is super serious. I mean, we recall that this is a very significant hazard. The first time we had this issue, as I mentioned years ago, was the same summer that I think a mother and her child lost their life in Chevy Chase in a basement that flooded during a heavy rainstorm. So I just really want to underscore the importance of this to us, and we'll make sure that we work with an appropriate engineer, and we'd be happy to work with you and have the engineer assess, our situation in conjunction with your property so you're comfortable with the plan moving forward as a condition to proceeding.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because I don't think in any of the plans that I have seen, there's been anything taken into account these properties. I mean, I know you've been concerned about it and Lauren has mentioned it, but we have been here and we have been available for discussion, and we would appreciate hearing from your engineer what the plans are, because it really, as Beth emphasized, it's really been extremely expensive to try to deal with this, as it's sort of flooded away our backyard several times.
I think,
I may look tough, but there's only so much I can do with a shovel and a wheelbarrow.
well, I appreciate that. And that's why I want to, again, commend the town for taking the action they have. And my understanding is that action, I don't want to speak for Matt, but my understanding is one of the problems is just the way the Montgomery Avenue is graded. All of that water from Mackey's driveway, where his little sump pump drains, all the way down to our house, plus everything from Circle Manor hits us. I mean, we didn't ask for all of that, right? This is not just rain falling on our property that then goes to yours. We're taking acres and acres of water directly. And so anything that the town can continue to do to help mitigate that problem, we really appreciate.
Is there anybody else from the public that would want to?
When the public's done, Darren, I have questions that,
I think we have to
questions
come
that
back.
generated. Perfect.
Councilmember Bartram, just to clarify what Mr. Caswell said, we're looking to crown Montgomery Avenue from the Barches down to the Woods property. If you're standing in front of Mr. Caswell's house right now and looking up towards the Barches, you'll notice that the street slopes entirely into Wendy Miller's property and Mr. Caswell. So what we're going to try to do is crown it in the center to get the water to flow to both sides, which would help the storm drains. As Mr. Caswell stated, I've spoken to him and Lauren. We increased the size of the inlets in front of their property, adjacent to Noyes Children's Library and on Warner Circle Park. And then we got the storm drain on a regular maintenance schedule. And Dr. Tracy and I had many conversations trying to fix her front walkway. And one of the biggest issues is there's the amount of water coming down through her backyard. They're funneling it to the front gate of the house, which is causing an issue for us and how we're going to determine to get the sediment away from her gate so we can fix the brick sidewalk in front. And I know Ms. Pierce and I have had conversations as well. So,
Matt, are you finding that this sediment and the water is correlates to rainfall events?
It
appears to. Dr. Tracy could clarify that.
Yeah, very definitely. Every time there's a storm, a lot of water,
cold.
it sort of overwhelms our drains that we've put in. And basically a lot of water and sediment washes still to the front part, collects and underneath comes through the side of the yard down to the front and washes out into the front yards underneath the gate, so that the sidewalk on Kensington Parkway, if you ever try to walk there, is extremely hazardous. We've had cones out there for several months trying to protect the public. And I almost fell out there taking the trash out one night after dark. It's extremely hazardous, and I'm not sure how that's going to be fixed, but yes, it absolutely corresponds with rain.
Okay. But I'll tell you why that's important to me, at least. And Connor, I'll then switch over to you. My experiences with water has been two different ways. One is groundwater. In my backyard and backyards, up and down my street, there are underground streams. And when you disturb the ground, you can disturb that stream and suddenly it's flowing over ground instead of through the stream that formed. And then the other way is just runoff. And so I am, midway down my hill, and every year my neighbor buys a nice load of mulch, and every year I receive it, because I'm downstream from his yard. And then if I ever used mulch, I would be sending it to my downstream neighbor. And so I want to make sure that in evaluating the variance request, that we're evaluating the variance request as opposed to trying to fix prior issues. I mean, the pool or the street, or I don't want to condition the variance on anything that isn't being created by the variance. So that's why I wanted to know if it's storm related, because it seems like when we have a variance that involves underground ground disturbance, that if we aren't dealing with underground streams that could be disturbed, that's not implicated by this variance request. Connor, did you have questions as well?
I do, either for, I think it was Lauren or Bruce, directly for you. So I see on your drawings for where the new garage and I'm on specifically the proposed lower level plan, page 4 of your drawings. In that cellar garage, there's an indication that you guys will have a sump pump installed. Where is that sump pump going to discharge to?
I think the intent would be to tie it into whatever is being used to capture, well, whatever being the existing piping that's capturing the water that goes. You may notice there's a grate that goes across the apron of the garage.
Mm-hmm.
So that sump pump could pump into that pipe, and we were intending to, based on engineering consult, to tie that pipe directly into a dry well. So that any water, yeah. And it may be more, candidly, now that I think about it, it might be better to try to engineer it to just tie into our stack and exit through the wastewater for the house. I'm just not sure. Lauren, I don't know if you've got a point of view on that.
I think those are both fine strategies at this time, and I would just want to consult with a civil engineer for a final strategy.
Okay, yeah, my main thing was understanding, understanding where the sump is going for the possibility of whether it's groundwater, I'm assuming for groundwater disturbance, but that water is not just being discharged out into the backyard to exacerbate the issue.
Oh,
right?
no, definitely.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's going to have to go into a dry well somewhere.
Perfect. Okay. That was from the drawings, my main question.
Anybody else with?
I have a quick comment, and I think that it just echoes basically what Bruce was suggesting, maybe, and what you were referring to, Darren. I do think that stormwater issues are becoming more and more of a problem and a challenge. Matt, Darren, Tracy, Connor, you were all, Bridget, I'm sure, paying attention to these issues too. They keep on coming before us in one way or the other, and it's not just because of this September event this last September event that was a pretty significant storm. I think the more that we can look a little bit more holistically at it by looking not only at the analysis of the impact on the adjacent properties, but also the mitigating measures, like what you can do to mitigate it. I think that's more and more what we need to do rather than looking at property by property. So, I would be definitely supportive of looking at this as a condition to make sure that it considers those downstream impacts.
All right. Anyone else have anything to add? I will tell you my thoughts on why I would propose that we move this forward to the next meeting with the resolution. Unless anybody else wants to start. I look at the side yard setbacks and the variance requirements from our code, and it completely relates to protecting green space, protecting space between houses. Some of them relate to, allowing people to continue to modify the houses as they were built back then, because sometimes a house was built too close to a property line, and so we allow them to continue back along that variance. I just don't, particularly when we don't have a project that disturbs the green space, the openness between houses. I don't see how we would not grant this. We don't. I think that this project going down would be preferable to a project going wider to accommodate 4 houses in a larger garage. And so to me, this does exactly what we want it to do, which is to maintain green space and allow owners to build within what they kind of bought into in the historic district. I just don't, look, I have water problems up here. I was at Bruce and Lauren's house in 2015, 2014, whenever the last storm was. That was Pete, Dwayne, me, a bunch of people just trying to solve a problem. But it wasn't a problem that they caused. It wasn't a problem that this variance impacts in the least. And so I just want to move this forward. with the understanding that, as Matt says, Nate acknowledges, we have a stormwater problem in this town, and we need to address it. But I don't want to address it in the context of a variance that, to me, seems eminently approvable. Anybody else?
A comment on that, Darren. I appreciate your thoughts on that, but I think it's a little narrow to think of this as only a problem of a variance, because it is impacting the total water runoff of this property, and it has been an extremely expensive overtaking for the other properties, the Palmers, Beth's, us, and I'm not sure who else. So I hear you that you are looking at solutions to this, and I think having the engineer talk with the people who've been affected would be important. And I think that the town committing to looking at this as an overarching water problem in the community is important. I'm not, I have not much to say about the variance, but it's not just a matter of 3 feet one direction or another. It's also X number of feet down, and what that impact, how that impacts, and how that impacts the green space on other properties. So yes, you're going to make a decision on the variance, but incorporated within that has to be a serious discussion of the impact this is going to have on the other properties.
Thank you. All right, other 3 council members, do we concur to move this forward to a resolution to be considered next meeting?
Yes, I mean, I think it's worthy to move it forward to a resolution. Bruce, you've acknowledged to Dr. Tracy, to your other neighbors, your willingness to participate between now and the July meeting. I'm hopeful that you all can get together as neighbors, share the engineering plans, talk a little bit more about it in case there's any comments for the July meeting.
So I'm sorry, let me get this straight. We have to wait now till the July meeting to get a decision on this. So we can't move forward with permitting. We can't move forward with the project. Part of the goal of this project was to undertake the majority of the excavation while my neighbor is out of state in Maine for the month of July and into August. And that way, and my neighbor, Wendy Miller, wrote a letter in support of this project. And I feel like, being a good neighbor, I could help accommodate that. And now we're yet another month away from a decision. Can we just, I'm sorry, I don't understand your process.
No, and the process is, a little bit slow and cumbersome in that we can't make a decision until we have a public hearing. We traditionally leave the record open for comments, and then we come back and pass a resolution. We do not have a resolution prepared for this evening for the project. And so, but, and I understand that the construction timeframe. I think by the end of this discussion, you will have a sense of where the council is heading.
Okay, thank you.
I guess for me, I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on what exactly we are going to be voting on tonight, because and a little bit more from you, Mr. Caswell, on what, I mean, you said you'd offer to kind of consider the other properties, your neighboring properties, and then those further down, kind of down the way from you, in the engineering analysis, or at least talking to the engineer as a condition. What do you exactly mean by that, and how do you?
Well, let me try to.
How do you plan to pursue that?
Yeah, well, I think, look, I'm not a geologist. I have no idea what is below my driveway when we dig this new basement. All I can tell you is that we have a requirement as part of the county building permit, as Lauren said, to make sure that there's a sediment mitigation strategy in place that's acceptable and doesn't allow, sediment from the construction process, which could include that created under a heavy rain, to infiltrate our neighbor's property. One would think that that would be sufficient to appropriately guard against such an event during the construction process. Subsequently, there will be water that sheets down our driveway, since I do believe, and we'll see, largely with the town's actions, the majority of the water that's been coming across from Circle Manor and down the street should go into the storm drain. To manage the residual water that comes across our property, my proposal was to tie into the existing dry wells that we've already invested in. And if greater dry well space is needed from an engineering standpoint to handle that water load, including the sump pump in the basement, we would invest in that accordingly. So, I want to take all the steps that I can take to mitigate any kind of water situation that this project creates in both phases. That's what I meant. And if our neighbors want to understand the engineering plan that is developed in order to affect that, then they're welcome to see that. But I candidly, I'm not sure what more I can do than what.
Sorry,
is
I'm asking
required.
specifically because you mentioned a condition of approval, and I just wanted to know what you're referring to because it sounds like that's not what you're talking about now. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah,
so
no,
that I know
that's
what
fine. I guess not understanding your process, it was difficult for me to know where we are in this stage. And I want to be a good neighbor. Look, I've been in this town for 26 years. I've invested a lot in our properties. We try to be really thoughtful, good people. And if, ensuring that Cindy and Beth's, concerns are addressed through both phases of the project, the construction phase and the subsequent, outcome by having adequate capacity on our property in our dry wells, as certified by an engineer, I'm happy, to make that a condition under which we undertake the project. Now, I don't know if that is a condition of approval for this council or a condition of approval of a permit from the town of Kensington or what. That's so forgive me, Nate, for not.
No, I was just, no, and I was just,
no.
I appreciate that explanation. I was just trying to understand exactly what you were recommending in a previous comment. And I don't know, Matt, if that even makes sense to do that because it's required anyway by the county to get the permit, right? To do this sediment and stormwater management.
So what the staff's requesting from the council this evening is to concur to move forward to drafting a resolution for July 12th. Mr. Caswell can move forward with the building permit as of tomorrow. We just wouldn't be able to sign or approve the building permit until the council has formally adopted the resolution at the July meeting. It's just a way for the council to direct the staff and for us to have the correct language when we're drafting a resolution for variance approval.
I understand. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Anybody else before we? I should say, is anybody opposed to this moving forward to a resolution? All right, so I think, Matt, you have directions for the staff to draft a resolution for July. And hopefully, in the meantime, any neighborly good faith and comfort that we can create would go a long ways, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we go to from the town manager and staff. 4th of July bike parade. What are people's thoughts on it?
Councilmember Bartram, can I move number 5 to the top of the list? Because I noticed that William Ellis from PEPCO is with us. So if Councilmember Angle and Councilmember Hills-Ayet want to discuss the electric vehicle charging stations.
Sure. Just a quick question. Are we going to do other updates from the council too after that then, after the town manager?
Sure. Sounds good.
Mr. President, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem.
I had not been fired from this job yet, but yes, we'll do from the council as well.
Okay. Bridget, do you want to go or should I? Your preference.
Right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay. You sure? Okay. I will go and then you can compliment. So we met, Bridget, Matt, and I met with PEPCO engineer, the PEPCO engineer from, I think it was 3 weeks ago now, to survey some of the sites that we were discussing. And it wasn't Mr. Ellis, it was Barbara. Matt, do you remember her last name? I'm blanking here.
Barbara Gonzalez, and she's actually on the call as well.
Oh, okay, great. Barbara's on too. I didn't see that she was on. So we had a really productive meeting and we just kind of walked around to some of the proposed sites. There were there were two that we were considering, and you have in the packet three actually, and we'll get to that point in a minute. But the first site was at the town hall at the Armory, where they're considering on the east side of the parking lot to put 4 charging stations, EV charging stations. The second site is at the Mark Station, basically the northwest corner of the parking lot on the south side of the Mark Station. And then the third, which we did not tour with her, was the St. Paul Park. Now, just to understand what's going to be, who's going to be doing what, Pepco will be taking on. Basically, Pepco will be providing all the infrastructure, the maintenance, all of the costs associated with actually physically locating and then operating the EV charging stations. The town is granting the right of use for the property, and then the customer or whoever is the person charging the car will pay for the electricity that charges the vehicles. I need to note, Connor, much to your dismay, these will not be supercharger stations. We just don't have the I think the density to do that.
But they're level 2. I see.
Yeah, but we do anticipate that these would be servicing a lot of people who are commuters, a lot of people who use the MARC, obviously there, but then people who use the MARC are also parking in our town parking lot in non-COVID times. So they can park their car, commute there, park the car, charge it while they're at work or whatever. And that's typically how these are used. And also town vehicles can use them, of course, when and if we ever transition to more EV electric cars. One thing I did want to note is that the St. Paul Park location, it'd be great to hear, especially Connor and Darren's opinions on this because you're over at that area. But we had not proposed that site. I mean, it was in initial discussions, but we did not propose it, but it actually came through in the proposal that's in your packets tonight because of the limitation of number of spots available. We think that might be, or at least I think it might be a little bit too many, or there are too few of parking spots to actually accommodate 4 of those as EV charging stations or EV charging sites.
It's an aggressive amount. It's an aggressive amount.
It's an aggressive amount.
Yeah.
It's an aggressive amount for that, especially for that location where, I mean, there aren't a lot of spots. So, Bridget, is there anything that I missed that you want to add? I'm sure that there are a couple other details that I glossed over.
I think you got everything. I would just, also note it takes a couple hours for some of these to, folks to get a real charge. So, just keep that in mind. I know somebody at the last meeting had brought up some concern that the time in the space would be too long. And, I think we have to sort of temper that with the desirability of allowing people to get a full charge. But that's about it.
Matt,
so, are you looking for questions now, Nate, Bridget?
I guess I don't know, Matt, if you had anything else to add that I missed.
I'll just add, Barbara Gonzalez is on the call. If you guys have any questions for her, she added the St. Paul Park site to, in addition to the Kensington Mark train station and the town hall. So I don't know if she wants to comment on that.
Hi, hello everyone, and thank you for having us. It was a pleasure being with you guys, but since you guys were so happy and so enthusiastic about the technology, I came across that we have visited in the past. I realized that's actually, I think that's National Park and Planning property, but I wanted to let you all know because no matter what it is, we wanted you to be a knowledgeable of what we are planning to do, or if that side doesn't work for you guys, that's fine. But I just want to be respectful and recognizing the interest that the leadership show about electric transportation. So I can answer any question that you may have, but I would love to do hydro charging stations.
So Barbara, hey, this is Connor. I actually live right across the street from those 4 at St. Paul Park that you identified, but I've got just a couple questions. So these are level 2 chargers. Roughly, what is the kilowatt output that these charging stations, or to put it in kind of the easiest term to understand, what's the mileage per hour charge rate of these style EV stations?
Okay. I gather you are a car guy, right? Because
I'm just a tech nerd.
okay, good.
No,
The
no,
charging
no.
rate of this charging station that I'm thinking about putting in your city is 7.7 kilowatt hour. As you know, the vehicle is the one that is in charge. The charging station delivers the power is 240 volts at 32 amps. So these are one of the fast level 2, and they're this little, and I can send you guys picture also. So the charge rate 7.7 kilowatt hour. Depending on the state of charge of the vehicle, the vehicle is the one that asks the charging station how much power they can accept. Now that's predicated on the type of vehicle, on the battery side, and the state of charge. How full is your battery when you come to charge? So having said all that, you can, if you have a Chevy Volt, and I mean Volt with the plug-in hybrid, you charge basically 3 kilowatt an hour. You know, that's old tech. Nowadays, the Chevy Volt with BS and Barbara, you're gonna charge maybe like 10 kilowatt an hour. So, because that has a larger range. So in the average, unless you have an 80 kilowatt hour pack Tesla, in the average, any vehicle can take anywhere between 2 hours to 3.5 hours in the average to charge on that type 7.7 kW level 2. I hope I didn't get too techy and I answered your question.
No.
I was just going to say that you have on the council here a Chevy Volt owner, and Nate is a Tesla owner. So I appreciate the difference in the charging draw and amps, and I'm sure that Bridget and Connor will join us in this.
I have a driveway, Darren. I need a driveway first.
Do you need a variance for it?
You can park in the town hall and charge.
Yeah,
there you
go, Bridget.
There you go.
The other two, I have pretty deep reservations about. I think it's 19 total parking spots that are at St. Paul Park, and they're frequently maxed out on a beautiful day or town events, and restricting 4 of those to electric vehicle, which the intent is that they're dedicated for electric vehicle charging. So unlike what happens in my building where people park their SUVs in them because we don't have enough parking in this building, that's going to be a constant problem. I agree with the initial thoughts, Bridget, that you and Nate had, that it's a little too aggressive. I have other concerns too. Barbara, for the location of these 4, I assume, well, I don't want to assume, let me just ask, how would the power get from the power line to these 4 charging units? Underground or overground?
Well, that depending on the location. For instance, and I don't remember right now in the park, but for instance, the service that we have at the Market Station in the City Hall is overhead. Okay, there's a pole, so the service is right there overhead. So from the service, if I don't have a transformer, I will have to upgrade transformer. I will change that transformer. But from the service, we go to something that is called, I call it, well, that's the name. It's a commercial meter panel. It's an enclosed box with boilers in front and back, and that the power comes in the back, and you have the meter inside, everything is sealed, and the breakers go. So from the commercial meter pedestal, we usually trench to the charging station. You usually come
right, but the power's got to come down from that overhead line and get to that initial bollard charging.
Yes.
Okay, so
and usually in some cases, we may have to put another pole in another location, like a Market Station. The power is across the street, and if you look at it, my overhead drawing, the power is across the street, so I may have to bring it to the other side.
Well, you're lucky. We got power poles on both sides of St. Paul Street. but you're unlucky because here's one of my other concerns is that the licensing agreement also says you need, 5 feet, and I understand why. You need room to be able to construct, maintain, and operate all of the equipment. But looking at where the power poles are, where we might put these 4 stations, we're also talking about the removal of either a large amount of tree canopy right at our park or entire trees to be able to set up the equipment that you just said. And that I right now I'm more pro tree than I am pro EV station at our town park.
Well, I can also tell you that when we look at the construction of the site and what we provided to you in the site proposal, it's an illustration. I realize that, but I don't kill trees either. I'm very concerned about trees. So in our program, we try to do all different type of construction to make sure we don't harm the environment. We take serious consideration into water flow, and I heard a lot about, which is a great meeting, by the way. I heard about stormwater and stormwater management and disturbance to the ground. So even our footprint, when we trench to do anything, we trench by code. We do everything by the book. So again, the third site I provided also just in case that meets your requirements, since the other 2 councils were looking forward to this kind of thing. If it doesn't work, I understand.
Well, and
I gotta say, because Barbara was pretty aggressively insistent about saving the trees when I was just like, let's just kill it. So I gotta say,
I was gonna say something, but I'm glad you did.
But my other thing is, I think we've got 2 other really good, viable potential locations that you guys have identified. My other concern, just from a programmatic one, Nate, I thought you did a good job of explaining how, part of the MARC and or town hall, how they'd be used is that people would be able to park there. Those are both commuter lots. We mark them as public parking lots, and they could connect during the day while they jump the MARC station or wherever they go in town to work. It could be charging, then they can come back and release. The parking spots all along St. Paul Street are 2 hour. They're intended to be turned over, right? So that programming throughout the day and across the weekend, that these spots aren't just turned into, permanent. In fact, they're 2 hours specifically to protect against commuters parking in them. And so that's another reason why I'm very hesitant for the St. Paul Park location, is that I think it would promote a kind of activity that we've been trying to prevent for years.
So I think
Understood. I understand. No hard feelings. I get it. I just was trying to
I know.
make sure we distribute that.
Barbara, you're doing your job, and you're doing a good job of it.
Thank you.
She's going beyond.
Yeah.
So I think I was super impressed with getting the spots that we initially picked out. I'm happy with just keeping those if we want to move on.
That's fine.
I do have one question about the actual language that's in the resolution, and it's just around.
You mean the license agreement?
Sorry, the license agreement. Thank you, Connor. Do we need to, Matt and Barbara, do we need to put something in there about just indicating who's paying for the electricity? Because it doesn't say anything about that in there, and I know that that's outside of the agreement between the town and Pepco, but I think it'd be worth at least indicating it, and maybe if it's not overstepping, to indicate what the rate would be, because there was a defined rate, right? Barbara,
that's correct. But you have to keep in mind that the rates are governed by the Public Service Commission. And those rates can change anytime, can change 3 years from now. So you will forever be changing the agreement. That's
You'd have to make that dependent upon the tariff. So if we don't really have control over that, so it would be kind of inappropriate.
Yeah. Okay. But then I guess for everyone's knowledge, I think the current one was 11. What did you say it was, 11?
No, the current rate for the public charging is 18 cents per kilowatt hour for level 2s, and there's 34 cents per kilowatt hour for DC fast charger. And I do have some installed in Montgomery County in Rockville.
I have a quick quick question on that, the rate, because does the driver sign up for some app that pays you for that power?
Great question, and I'm here to answer. When you go to a charging station, there's 3 ways that you can charge. There's a QR code right on the charging station. You hit the telephone app and bring you the Green Light Network, which is the partner that we have selected. And with the Green Light Network, you can actually pay, create an account, take like 5 minutes, create an account, or if you don't like to do that, there's a telephone number, you can call and a real human being come up and you answer the phone, you say, I'm in charging station 1, 2, and 3, and I would like to charge my vehicle. And you pay with your credit card, you get an email and everything. So everything is via app, via phone, and totally automated. We'll also have, for any concern or any particular city or municipality, when somebody get a charging station app, they usually sign up to get an email or a text when their vehicle finishes charging. So all that technology already exists, and we are using a vehicle app. You don't have a credit card reader. Credit card readers have, obviously, there's issues with somebody coming right behind you and trying to steal your credit card. And also, credit card readers actually get very dirty, so it requires a lot of maintenance. And the technology exists to do that. So there's 3 ways that they can do.
And then do you ever charge, because I know I work in a building that has, that can track out to Blink. And so there's a rate for the electricity, and then there's a rate that they start charging you just for occupying that spot because they want rollover. They don't want you to camp there, fill up your car for a couple of miles, and then have the spot for the rest of the day. Do you ever charge for, I don't know what it's called, but the
for parking?
Yes.
No, we're an electric utility. We had been approved and we are governed by the Public Service Commission in Maryland. Every information is, public. So we only got approval for a public program that we will install, manage, and operate at no fee to the city or the municipalities. So we're being approved to do that. And this is part of Maryland program. Everybody knows that we have a crisis in this nation, an environmental crisis. And this is part of the Maryland long-term strategy to convert a lot of electric vehicles, bring electric vehicles, because a lot of people don't buy the electric vehicle because they don't have a place to charge. And most of the stuff that I hear from customers is that I don't have a place to charge. So we are part of Maryland Public Service Commission utility, and the same thing, Maryland is doing one of the greatest job in the nation because every utility in Maryland is having some sort of different program. So for us, it's in our service territory. We just focus on the energy and focus on providing the customer what they need.
Okay. And look, I'm all for, providing incentives for people to transition to these kinds of vehicles. I've had great success with the Volt, decreased maintenance. It rarely go to the gas station, and that's all great. I just worry a little bit about taking a lot of parking spaces out of commission when we aren't quite in that transition zone. But maybe we accommodate that by just doing 2 of the 3 sites.
Which is fine. It's fine. I just didn't, I had seen this other site, and one of the things that we look at is the diversification of neighborhoods. You have a beautiful city, I should say a beautiful town, and the diversification of neighborhoods. So we put some charging station one part of the town, another charging station another part of the town. But I had to work with what you guys believe and all the council folks believe is the best. You know your town better than me. I love it. I've been there many times, but it's entirely your decision. And I'm just here to answer any concern that you may have.
Just so you North Siders know, we did walk over on the other side of the mark to check out if it was possible to put them there too, but it's just untenable. So we were looking out for that side as well to see if we could put them a little closer to the north side. So what's next? What do we do, Matt?
No actions required this evening. We'll work with Mr. Ellis and Ms. Watkins. I know our town attorney has already advised us she wanted to make a couple small addendums to the language. And then we'll have a resolution before the council in July for the MARC train station location and town hall.
Great.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Barbara. Thanks, William.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are we back to parades? July 4th parade, bike parade. Thoughts?
Unless we want to finish mayor and council.
Darren,
Oh, I guess,
come on.
see, I viewed as from the mayor and council as the whole thing, but okay, fine. So you're saying council members are above town manager and staff. I'm sorry.
I would never say that.
Nate, please tell
You
me
said
what
it,
you
Darren.
tell
I'm
us.
sure that's true.
Your words.
I would never put myself above Matt. Let's do from the council then. Who would like to go first? All right, moving on to mayor and
I have things. I was trying to be polite. Bridget or Nate, anything?
I have two things. One of them is compost crew. Connor, if you're gonna
No,
tackle
that's
that,
yours.
go for it.
No, all you.
All right, real quick. And then I have the pedestrian bicycling access working group. Very quick. On compost crew, Connor and I met with Dan Israel from the compost crew, and we agreed that we invited them to come to participate and have a booth like they did a month ago, every month, recurring throughout the summer, every third Saturday of the month. So next week and then subsequent third Saturdays, they're going to be there signing people up and educating folks. We also discussed putting a community bin up where the vendors and also the residents who are maybe just not enough compost to actually warrant their own collection site that the town will pay for and host at the MARC station. Hopefully not to coincide with the EV charging station sites, but they're going to build. We're going to build a platform. I don't know, Matt, if you have an update on that, or Connor, you have an update on exactly where it'll look, what it'll look like. But it'll be for one of their larger bins that they'll come and do a separate site pickup outside of the normal servicing out day, which is Friday for our town. They will come probably on a Monday, I think is what they said, Connor, right? Not Sunday, but
Yeah,
not too long after the scraps are
Right.
there from the farmer's market.
Correct. I think we still need to walk the site now, especially in light of the EV, and just make sure we're not overcrowding any particular area or causing inefficiencies in the parking lot.
Yeah, and the town staff or the town, the crew will build it for under the specifications that Dan provided. We just, we haven't talked with you yet, Matt, about that, I don't think.
Right. So for the town's benefit, the whole purpose is we want to have a large bin collection for the vendors and other people who just don't generate enough, as Nate said. But we don't want a can just sitting out there that's full of compost scraps that animals and critters can get into. So the crew would build a kind of like a bear box, if you've ever seen them up in around houses and around like Deep Creek Lake, where these cans would be stored and locked and inaccessible to wildlife, but accessible to the compost crew to pick up and dispose of the remnants. So we just have to do a sighting of them along that MARC station.
Great.
So here's a crazy idea. If compost crew is going to be coming to the farmer's market once a month, can we just have a bin with them?
Different crew.
I was thinking we could guilt people into signing up because they keep coming every once a month and dumping stuff in it, and eventually they'll sign up. But different crew.
Yeah, their kind of marketing education people are just different than their operations people.
Okay.
So,
Good. Okay, so the only other point I wanted to raise was just a quick update on the pedestrian bicycling access and safety working group. So we are moving ahead for the in the process of this transportation land use connections grant that we got from COG in partnership with Montgomery County Department of Transportation. Just wanted to give everyone just kind of a very quick roadmap of where we're going with it, because we will need the town's full support, both in terms of, I guess, our ability to plan for public engagement, but then also to kind of encourage public engagement in this process. We've asked for it so the scope of work is now out, or is now being finalized by the COG staff, the Council of Government staff. And they've asked for input from our working group and from Montgomery County Department of Transportation, as well as from the council. And it's a really solid scope of work where that will be, basically they'll get a short list of the consultants that are approved to do the bidding on these projects. They'll get that short list of those that are submitting a proposal. And then there'll be a small working group, a small selection committee composed of me representing the town, one person from the Council of Governments, and then one person from Montgomery County. And then we'll select which of we'll work together to select which of the proposals will move forward and do the actual work. But the scope of work itself, we've purposefully made it very participatory, and we really want a lot of engagement. So, and to save costs on the limited finance that the grant has for the actual analysis, we've offered as a town to just, help to organize the meeting, like following our own public engagement processes to make sure that we're publicizing it, getting the word out, encouraging participation, because we really do want a lot of input, especially at that first meeting. But there'll be a couple of touch points throughout let's say like early fall through the spring when they're doing the analysis and the participatory process. So just to stay tuned that that will be happening, and it's rolling right now. So it's really exciting, and everyone who's been participating from the county to the Council of Governments seems very encouraged and excited about this. And they reaffirm that this is the time to think really big. There's really a kind of have that environment right now to think big and bold. So we'll encourage people to have, big and bold inputs to this. The other thing I want to say from the working group update was that there was some discussion in the last working group meeting, and I think that I agreed at that meeting to raise them during the council meeting to have a some sort of streetscape design package of some sort that developers, when they're doing their development, can come and say, okay, we're going to pick from this set of town approved designs to meet the wherever the modern look is, or the antique look, or whatever. I know this has probably been discussed and raised in the past, but the concern was that the sector design guidance doesn't give enough detail, especially on things like streetlights. So this was an issue that was raised and discussed during our meeting. And just to put that out there, that we, in subsequent months might want to look into developing that, maybe starting with a streetlight issue for this design package. So I just wanted to put that out there, that this was discussed, and hopefully we can bring it up more concretely later. Thanks.
Before we go to break, is Connor or Bridget?
I do have 4 things, but I noticed Mayor Tracy has returned.
Oh, for crying out loud.
I just...
Your reign is over, Darren. Your reign is over.
My first item is I would like to deeply extend my gratitude to Councilmember Bartram for acting pro tem. I thought he did a fantastic job of running this meeting.
If I could learn to read the agenda.
Questionable.
Tracy, since you are back, my first one on my list was going to be Warner Mansion, but do you want to update on that?
Yeah, but I just want to say the Civic Federation, they had the Wayne Goldstein Award, and I'm sure most of you don't know who Wayne Goldstein was, but he was an advocate and someone who really took civic involvement seriously, and he died at a young age, being probably in his 50s, which is young. And the park there on St. Paul Street is named after him in Kensington Heights. But the young ladies that won, these are two teenage girls who were doing a climate change project and trying to get the county to develop better policies for climate change and environmental issues. And the amount of energy and passion that these two sisters had was just incredible. So when they say the next generation doesn't care, you just look to these two girls and it was just, they were phenomenal. So I enjoyed that award more than the one that we got, much more so. So Connor, go ahead.
Sure.
Do your game.
Well, Mayor Furman and I, along with Jason Gerson, who was representing the Friends of Warner Circle, had the opportunity to meet with the County Administrative Officer, Rich Madalino, as well as representatives from the General Counsel's Office and from the Department of General Services to talk about Warner Mansion and Carriage House. As you'll remember, the council passed a resolution, not our first, but our most recent resolution last month, in support of a potential agreement between Washington Landmark Corporation or contracting and the county. This is, you're going to see why this is important, to redevelop Warner Mansion and Carriage House into condominiums, but maintain the 4-acre park around it as a Montgomery County park. And there was some consternation that the agreement hadn't been signed or finalized by the county executive, but we had a chance to talk with General Counsel and Rich Madalino as to where it was, why it wasn't signed, maybe what was happening, and what the way forward is. And for you legal scholars out there, it is a point of legalese that's kind of holding it up, and that is who has the legal right to dispose of the land in an agreement. And it just comes down to currently the agreement is drafted to be between Montgomery County Parks and Planning and Washington Landmark, but Montgomery, it sits on MCPP park, but in reality, all land within the park system belongs to the county, and so it needs to be the county that is disposing of the property. And so they are working together, Parks and Planning and Montgomery County government, and they will work with Washington Landmark to get a agreeable by all parties agreement that legally disposes of the land properly. And their hope was that they might be able to achieve this by the end of June. We have an update call with them scheduled for next week, which we will see where they're at. The hope was that they would have a resolution available for the county council. That is, all the county council needs to do is approve a resolution for them to sign this agreement. And they're hopeful that maybe they can have that for the July session. If they don't, it would mean that it will have to wait through the August recess and then be taken up in September. But Rich and the other county representatives were all seemed very positive that this would occur and would hopefully occur very soon, and that project could actually move forward. Tracy, anything to add?
The only thing I'd add is our plan is to continue to meet with them. If we don't have the way forward at the end of our meeting when we meet in June, we'll set another meeting for a few weeks later. So we're going to continue to have that meeting time until this is put to rest.
Mm-hmm. Next, we've had a lot of topics on today's agenda about stormwater and stormwater management. I had the opportunity, Darren, as well, Mayor Tracy, we attended a stormwater management summit that Delegate Carr had put together. We were able to join it. Matt, really just a big thank you to you for recognizing that the mayor and council weren't actually invited to the forum, but an invitation did come through to the town manager. We were able to participate. It was focused fairly hyper locally along Knowles and Summit and some of the stormwater there. The background for the event was attributing some of that to the development that has been approved within the town. I thought the residents there gave a very good view for some of us who don't live in that part of town of, kind of where the water comes from and how it traverses their land. There were two other attendees. There was a gentleman from the Department of Permitting Services who talked about how they approve development plans and their stormwater management component that goes into that. And he gave a very good rundown of, the different lots that had gone from permeable to impermeable or undeveloped into redeveloped, and as well what those projects were doing as far as capturing and treating the runoff. And so many of these projects that have been approved, this would be Knowles Station, the Flats, Knowles Manor, and the 6 townhouses, are largely capturing, the majority or all of their stormwater and treating it before it then goes into the stormwater management system. And so he did a very good job of talking about that. MCDOT was there to talk about their very limited resources, but the programs that they have for trying to put in mitigation strategies, some of which could very well, help with stormwater along that area, increased inlets, the size of inlets, curb and gutter, channelization. There's some of those things don't exist on the south side of Knowles Avenue. So, we kind of sat back just to be in listening mode, but there were a couple of things. There was some either misunderstanding or misinformation around the impact of some of the development items. I attempted to speak up on behalf of the town. Unfortunately, I was muted by Delegate Carr. I guess he felt we were running out of time and we were not able to convey those. I did have a chance to follow up with him afterwards and conveyed some of my thoughts afterwards. But just to know that stormwater and stormwater issues are all around us, that that's not a pun. That's just the reality. And we are trying to work with state and county organizations to help find solutions for all areas, because the solutions are different everywhere. Next was 10619 Connecticut Avenue. This is otherwise known as Huggins, otherwise known as Hawkins, the crossroads of Connecticut and Pliers Mill. The developers held their community meeting. It was done online last week. It was a little under an hour long, where they presented their current plans and took questions and answers from the public. The main takeaway there is they are, moving forward with the current set of plans. They have no leases signed, but they reiterated what their vision is from the input they've received from community members, which is for sit down fast casual restaurants. They talked about interest from a veterinarian clinic, interest from a health clinic, and these are smaller sites. Don't think a massive health clinic. This is like a kind of a minute clinic kind of thing, where it would be 1,500 square feet is what they said, and then interest potentially from a bank. But they're very early in their plans. They took a lot of feedback from the community, and the hope is that we will see that plan evolve from that public community input. Then lastly from me is just a big overall shout out to Mayor Tracy, to the staff for helping with Kensington Parkwood's 5th grade class, just try and recapture a lot of the events that were going to be lost due to COVID. First, they normally run bake sales at school-based events, but there are no school-based events. So they had no mechanism for trying to raise funds for these events until we brought it forward, and we started, they started doing their KP bake sales. They did 3 of them, I believe, at Howard Avenue Park. They were hugely successful. The kids had a lot of fun. I think, town residents who engaged with kids had a lot of fun. There was a lot of talk about, people who went to Kensington Elementary School. Just, it was really neat to see that. But the funds raised also allowed them to host a 5th grade picnic, which normally would be at Kensington Parkwood Elementary, but was not permitted due to COVID. And they were able to host it because they came to the town and they did it at St. Paul Park. And it was a huge success. As the parent of a 5th grader, the 5th graders are still talking about it. Apparently there was an American Ninja Warrior course set up with all of the inflatables, and record times were set. It will be a memory for the ages. And then lastly, they were able to hold their 5th grade dance party at Town Hall last Friday. And being in attendance to be a chaperone, I can tell you it was an anthropological wonderment to be seen. I did not know that my son had such great dancing skills, but apparently for glow-in-the-dark necklaces, he is willing to display them. So thank you to the crew and the town. I know Jamie helped to clean up the room. The crew set up all the stuff for us to get the bake sales in order. Matt for organizing and helping, Shirley for getting permits and everything in order. I really deeply appreciate the staff and crew, everything they did to help make this year salvageable for that 5th grade class.
It wasn't the dance party was a lot of fun. I invited myself because I love dance parties. It's just a lot of fun to watch it, although it's kind of dark in there, but it was kind of cool. I sent a text to my daughter, Caitlin, who is a graduate of KP, and I said, when did you graduate? And she sent me a picture of her t-shirt that has the names in it from 1996. So she has saved her KP t-shirt from 5th grade. And of course, my son was 91, who was the last 6th grade class. So KP, of course, is my Sam didn't go to KP, but because of her disabilities, but it was a great school. So, and it looks completely different than when my kids went there. So,
all of the names fit inside of the 96.
Yes, they did. It was much smaller. They were closing schools when my kids were in school in elementary. So. I just want to add on to the stormwater management meeting. It was disappointing that no one from State Highway was on the call because 547, which is Knowles Avenue, as Connor pointed out, does not have any curb and gutter, sits up high. Kensington Estates is low, so all that water's coming down and really doesn't have anywhere to run to get to the one very small inlet there across the street. So it would be great if State Highway could do some improvements along Knowles. And then of course, supporting the Summit Avenue extension would be really helpful because stormwater management, of course, would be part of that project. And right now, there is no stormwater management on Summit Avenue, which belongs to the county, not to the town. So, Darren, have you had an opportunity to speak? Did you want to bring anything up?
I'll just say a couple of quick things because I know it's getting late. First, just about the election. I appreciate the support I received from the voters in town to serve another term. I noticed that nature is healing, that even the politicians are starting to come back to our elections. We had Delegate Emily Shetty and Jared Solomon there for almost the full 3 hours. Nate and Bridget were there, even though they weren't up for election. So it was a nice night. I appreciate the support, particularly in response to some unexpected last minute dark money electioneering. So, and now we have work to do. We need to, we've sort of had some things that got sidelined for the budget. We need to address setbacks. We need to address ADUs if we're going to, and now that traffic is coming back, we need to start re-engaging on that as well. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to have another term.
Good, thank you. Nate, I know you spoke. Bridget, did you have something? Nothing? All right, so I guess we're ready to move on to town manager and staff. So Matt?
Sure. Mayor, we spoke with Kensington Volunteer Fire Department, and they have agreed to lead the annual 4th of July bike parade pending approval of the town council to move forward with the event.
Okay. I also have talked to Mark Hudson and Val Deal, and they're on board. So with holding the event. So I just remind everyone, attending these events is not mandatory. So anyone who's not comfortable certainly does not have to participate. So Council, what is your preference?
I'm in favor of the bike parade. I mean, I just, as a parent of 4 small kids and talking to the parents on the north side, I think the people who want to do it will do it, and the people who don't will just not come. But people are, the ones who want to do it are really excited to try and get some of these events back, especially for the little ones.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment?
I just have a question. So are they going to have any sort of like mask requirement for the kids who are not vaccinated, or are we just
I
saying?
think, yeah, I believe the kids outdoors, do they have to, I don't think they have to wear masks, do they?
I don't know.
No, county guideline right now is outside public spaces do not need to, although still recommended for anybody, who, but they're not required.
So maybe we could take the next couple of weeks and figure out, because it goes down my street, and it sometimes gets a little bit congested, and you might call it fun.
I seriously doubt we'll have the numbers that we typically have.
Right, and I just don't. I wonder if there's a way to space it out a little bit more. Just have a, and again, maybe not. I mean, we're outside, but to the extent that we can increase participation by saying we're going to try to, do some increased spacing. I would not impose a mask requirement that is not being asked for by the county or state health departments, but I would just,
Can we encourage masks, but not require them? We can always in our communications just encourage it.
Well, that's typically what you see now when you go into a store, that if you are unvaccinated, we strongly encourage you to wear a mask. That's inside, but I mean, you could do the same for outside. It's really hard when people are gathering there on St. Paul Street. I mean, I think people are kind of used to kind of social distancing on their own. People could certainly wait in the park and then join the parade. That's a possibility too.
I guess the only thing that gives me a little pause is just that we're kind of concentrating a whole big group of people who are definitely not vaccinated. Like if they're under 12, they're not vaccinated at all. So, that makes me a little nervous. And sort of just saying, well, like, they can come or not come. It's like, yeah, but like we're knowingly doing this. I don't know. That makes me a little nervous.
Matt, what was Chevy Chase Village? What is their event? I know you've talked to Shayna.
They're holding a picnic, which is a little different than ours. It's they're having a barbecue and a picnic where they'll have food. And last I spoke with Shayna, they were moving forward with the event. And there might be a small parade involved in their event as well. I don't think they would reach the numbers that we do with a 4th of July bike parade, though.
Well, the alternative is you could just have, the ice cream, get some ice cream vendors, and then have the parade, in the park, and just have people ride their bikes around the circle. You would definitely get less people.
There's a new path.
There's a new path.
But why not just put it out to the parents and say, we expect parents to make a decision about participation and masks and distancing. I mean, ultimately, the parents are the ones who should make the decision, not us.
Parents? You have parents?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to review my mute. I'm trying to review the county parks current guidelines to see what county health is saying. I mean, regardless of what we do, Casey and I are going to make a decision for all of our kids anyways. And, likely it'll be to have our kids wear masks. But to Darren's point, I think, the question always becomes, it is, if we want to mandate it, then how are we enforcing it? To be fair, I mean, if we're going to say your kids have to wear masks, then what is our plan to ensure that kids wear masks? Who is going to be, going around to enforce it?
No, I don't
what I'd
think
like to do.
Sorry, that's not the issue about mandating it. It's just, why can't we recommend it? What's the harm?
I'm not opposed to recommending it. What I'd like to say is, that's why I'm trying to look at the county, is we have followed the county's guidelines step for step the entire pandemic. And I'd just like to do the same thing now so that we're consistent with what we've been doing. So that's why I'm trying to look that up really quick.
Yeah. John Gerson had a.
Yeah, see, he says, wording on a flyer is easy to add. Strongly encourage those who've not been vaccinated to wear masks. I mean, That's not a problem.
And then it's up to the parents.
Then it's up to the parents.
But Connor, I might be more adept at the internet than you.
I'm there. I'm just reading it in full.
The face coverings are recommended indoors and outdoors, particularly when physical distancing cannot be maintained for people 2 years and older who are not fully vaccinated. So
we recommend them.
Recommend it. That's fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Darren will
And
come
I
up
would.
with a sophisticated spacing plan in the next 3 weeks.
Well, I mean,
it's
that's
the
not
bubble.
part
It's
of the
the bubble
recommendation.
suit.
So,
It's,
mean, if we're gonna
it's,
recommend
they want
masks-
you to wear masks when you can't social distance. Is that what it said?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recommend masks. Then I would not try to, create this new distancing thing.
Well, I think if there's a problem distancing, we can have people stand in the park. And then as the parade starts moving, then those people can start feeding into the, I mean, I think the park is huge, so I don't see that as a problem.
Yep.
Okay. Does anyone in the audience want to make a comment? Their thoughts? Not seeing anybody else. So hold the parade. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes.
I'm in
Yep,
favor.
Yes, Bridget, you're no, you're a maybe.
So,
You're-
I'm a little squeamish. but
okay, well, you have a right to.
You can
squeamish.
outvote me. That's okay.
It's
Well, you
not
certainly don't have to
mandatory.
go.
It's not a mandatory event. If you're not comfortable, please stay home. I think that is for any.
I shall.
All right, well, let's move on to the next one. That's going to be even bigger. So Matt, sounds like we're going to have the parade, and I will talk to Mark about maybe not promoting it quite as heavily. I think we want to keep the numbers a little bit down this year.
Okay. So we are kind of at the tipping point of what to do with Labor Day parade. If we want to actually hold the parade, we need approval this evening. State Highway Administration has allowed us to proceed with permitting for the closure of Connecticut Avenue. But in speaking with the parade and festival coordinators, it looks like if we do anything, it might be more realistic to do a small festival and not have a parade this year. Maybe bring in some wine and beer vendors at Town Hall, bring in the bounce houses for Reinhardt Park, and maybe a band. But I don't think the parade is a realistic option right now for us. So I don't know. We're just looking for feedback from the council, whether to even hold the event or just scale back from previous years.
I mean, typically we've started the parade planning besides the state highway portion of it probably 2 months ago.
Correct.
We've also rely on, it's not completely necessary, but we rely on donors to help supplement the cost of the parade. So that's probably wouldn't happen this year as well. And then I'm concerned about groups who haven't met in 15 months, whether they would be able to pull it together to even, participate in a parade. And then I'm not sure how the music portion would work, especially if kids have to, the musicians, if they haven't been vaccinated, although I think most of probably the middle, high, and the high schoolers will be vaccinated. I think they have to be vaccinated before they go back to school. But have they practiced? So, that's, now next year's an election year. We'll get lots of interest next year. So I think the parade will be able to bounce back pretty easily next year. But I want to do something.
Do we know off the top of our head? I mean, because the politicians all do a circuit on Labor Day. Like, who else? What other municipalities should we check with? It seems like Gaithersburg is going to hold theirs. Because that'll give us a sense of, do they have vendors and participants who have rehearsed and want to sign up? Because we're here in mid-June and we have July and August that things can evolve. I mean, I'd be happy to check with them. I just don't remember who else, where our politicians scuttle off to.
I know it's Gaithersburg. I'm pretty sure Gaithersburg is the one they all head off to. It's Tamika. I don't remember Tamika's last name. Who's
Poolsville is they have their own day, don't they?
they have their own day.
I think they just have a Poolsville day. I don't think it's a Labor Day.
Oh, Poolsville. Yeah, I don't think they have a Labor Day event.
Okay.
I like the idea of sort of a scaled back event. I think that's smart. It's really like kind of playing to our strengths and minimizing the bigger risks involved. It still gets the town together.
Yeah, the question is, would you want to move it to St. Paul Park where it's larger, or do it at Reinhardt, which is smaller, but you would close the street?
I was thinking, one of the things that I like the most about the Labor Day parade is, especially if you're in it, you get to, walk the town and see different parts of town, see people. Why don't we hold it in a couple of different locations? Like a couple, we just did all these improvements to our parks. Why not have a couple of small, celebrating our parks, and have a couple of locations with vendors, or like you said, beer or wine, and
Make it a
that
crawl.
gets people. Yeah, that makes people walk throughout the town and really kind of embrace that element of it. If it's too difficult to plan, it makes it more complicated. Totally
I
get
think
it.
the complication is we don't have a lot of staff to help work the parade, and I know we've actually, to get volunteers, that we've had to put gift cards in front of their faces in order to get them. I would just be afraid of staffing. If you try to put like 5 different locations instead of a central location, it would be really difficult for our staff to carry, and it's an awful lot for the crew to maintain. Yeah. I would have some concerns about maybe next year, but this year
we should keep that in our back pocket, though. I like that.
Keep it in our back pocket. We'd have to definitely get maybe 5 assistants for Matt to be in 5 different places at one time. So,
Bridget, when you say scaled back, are you thinking scaled back parade or fixed site?
Explain more what you mean.
Oh, well, you said I support a scaled back event this year, and I'm trying to figure out, could it be a scaled back parade, or are you thinking the scaled back, in a
fixed
park
location?
somewhere?
I think a fixed location where there's some space would probably be, because if you see people at the parade, they're kind of like that, looking at the street. This might be like a little bit more enjoyable. You can walk around and see people and do some stuff that we traditionally do. I think it's a perfectly reasonable response.
And I'm just sort of trying to think through, like, of the participants that we have. I don't know that, there would be, I don't know that a marching band would want to come to a park and march around.
And I agree with you. I don't know that would be the most appropriate location for a
or a
marching
dance group.
I think Bridget was talking more about and tell me if I'm wrong, I think you were latching on to what Matt had talked about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not to have a parade, but have this festival portion of it, and a band, and some food and that sort of thing.
And I think, to be honest, when I hear the most feedback from people, especially with little kids, that's the part that they enjoy the most. So I think it's almost like we're distilling the best parts of Labor Day, and kind of, still keeping it somewhat small in light of the situation, but not losing the good parts.
In that case, we have to ensure that there's someone throwing candy at the kids.
That's right, directly at their faces. Directly.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think a scaled back, just like a festival, would work well for this year as kind of a first step back in, and then knowing, to Tracy's point, with all the elections that are coming up in 22, it shouldn't be hard to get people to want to come back to a full scale parade, assuming the world is not reverted. To that end, I do see a lot of logic to doing like St. Paul Park, and being able to set up a stage, have a band and music, and you have the playground there, and you have plenty of space for some carnival games. I would make the recommendation, I'm sure Matt's already had it, I just want to sound smart, to close off St. Paul Street and make it, use St. Paul Street as kind of like almost like adding to it as a block party, because that would give you space to put, food trucks and other things that way they're not up in the park area. It also just ensures that is completely a pedestrian zone on all sides of the park there, so that we just don't have to worry about cars flying down St. Paul Street, which I'm happy to go and talk to my neighbors and convey this messaging.
Well, they're typically, St. Paul Street is closed for at least a short period of time on Labor Day anyway, so they're kind of used to that inconvenience.
Right.
Maybe not quite as long, but it would be, I think it would be a good idea to close St. Paul Street. And it could be, we do a Labor Day giant block party.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Please also get plenty of porta potties.
Yes.
So that.
But you have more bathrooms now.
Nope. Please get plenty of porta potties.
Does anybody on the call have any questions or want to make a comment? Beth, go ahead. You're on mute, just so you know.
So I'm just curious what the merchants would think about either of those plans, what their likely response would be. I don't know what kind of business they do on Labor Day. Maybe they really don't do much business on Labor Day and it wouldn't matter. But if that is a big day for them because they're so used to, people coming into town, do we want to ask them or?
Well, I certainly talked to them, but Labor Day for them is pretty much a bust because all the activity is down at the, I hate it when people move around. Now looking down instead of up. Most of the activity is down by Town Hall. So, and they just pretty much just close. I mean, Monday's a day of closure anyway for all the stores. So it's at least for the Howard Avenue merchants, Labor Day is not a big day for them.
The festival zone would consist of Armory Avenue south of Knowles, so south of the Safeway parking garage, down to Warner Street, all of Mitchell Street, and then Town Hall. And then obviously we'll have Paint the Town as well in Town Hall. So,
but I think we're talking about moving it to St. Paul Park. So,
okay.
Yeah, but to add to Tracy, Beth, during a normal parade route, we close off huge sections of Howard Avenue and Armory. And so to Tracy's point, it's kind of that day is just kind of written off because their businesses are largely inaccessible. There may even be a few merchants that you might hear would welcome the change for a year.
2 years in a row. Well,
But they may want to bring Franklin and his trailer up to St. Paul Park. If that's something we can accommodate.
Yeah.
Again, to that point, Matt, if there is anything we can do to reach out to the types of restaurants and merchants that would complement this type of festival and work to give them priority, I'd like to see that done as well.
Okay.
I mean, in some ways we're scaling it back, but we're also changing it. So we're going to really have to plan now because there are all sorts of things we're going to have to look at each vendor that has participated in the past and figure out, do they make sense for a fixed location?
Well, I mean, this is why we have 2 people that we actually employ to plan the Labor Day parade and festival. So this will be turned over in their capable hands. I think we can, look at the Reinhardt Park, keeping it down by Town Hall so the Paint the Town has an opportunity too. But, I think the backup plan would be St. Paul Park would be a backup plan. Just have to kind of figure out how many vendors we can get and then go from there. Okay.
So we'll work with Lisa and Victoria and kind of come up with a plan centered around Town Hall or possibly St. Paul Park, and present something at the July council meeting.
Okay. I mean, and they can go ahead and start reaching out to vendors that are wanting to come. Good. Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Number 3, the town organizational meeting. Okay. Thank you, Jack. Typically we have an organizational meeting right before the July meeting, which lasts about 15-20 minutes, where we do assignments to the different committees are reassigned. This year, this group of elected officials has actually never met in person. So Nate has not had that honor yet we've not been all in the same room for since, well, the four of us since March. I think we made the March meeting, I think, and then got into COVID. And then of course Nate came on board in July. So I'd like to do an in-person work session. We have some other things that we need to do. Some of the things that Nate had brought up, we can talk about at a work session, and go through the committees and kind of look at how we want to set those up, if there's any changes we want to make, if we want to add another committee, or so. I think we need more than 20 minutes, in other words. I'm looking at doing a 5 o'clock so that we can, staff doesn't need to hang around too long, or, have to go home and then come back. And then probably have a meal. Work sessions for the public. It is open to the public, but work sessions are for the public to observe. They do not participate. So this would be for the council to get ourselves organized. Probably should meet before July 12th, if possible. And I think Connor was going to send around a doodle.
Yeah, I'm happy to volunteer to coordinate dates with everybody, circling around a 5 p.m. start.
Yeah. Is anybody going out of town on vacations just between now and the 12th?
Well, yeah, I will be.
Okay. Can you
just email me those dates, Darren?
Email those dates so they're not on there. Okay. All right, good. Actually, we can also talk about how we want to go forward with the, some people have requested going back to in-person meetings. We need to work on some technology so that people can they can watch it because it's streamed on YouTube, but they cannot communicate, cannot figure out how to communicate back and forth. And then I've talked to Evan Glass, council member Evan Glass at large, and he's coming to our July meeting, and I think he's hoping to do that virtually. So we'll probably do our July meeting virtually, and then figure out August, September, hopefully we could do in person, and then we'll probably go back to virtual for a while for those who are on the call that aren't aware, but we have a baby coming. So Bridget is, her baby's due at the end of September. So in order for her to attend meetings more easily, we may be going back to virtual. Well, that's to be determined on how we're going to.
Thank you.
I thought Abby, when she was a puppy, you could bring the baby.
I feel like this hot mess can get there, but you might not want it.
I told Bridget she's our first council person ever to have a baby in office, so it's kind of
hard
exciting.
to believe, isn't this? It sounds like 100+ years old.
I know, but I don't think we had a lot of women that why.
There we go.
Yeah. So anyway, so it's exciting. So one of the other things we're going to do at the work session is pick out baby names for Bridget.
Yes.
So that's on
obviously. All names will be considered.
Yeah. Winner gets one of those gift cards, right?
That's right.
Winner gets an EV parking spot.
And a baby.
Wait, you'll have to babysit. I think she's going to sign us up for baby. Okay, so we'll get that date picked, and then we can put it on the calendar. But we'll have another town council meeting on the 12th of July, and that will be virtual, so Evan Glass can join us. Okay, the last item, the electric vehicle charging stations. Who wants to talk about that?
We already did.
Oh, you did? You went straight to that? Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're down to public appearances. Did you already do that? No. Okay. Jack, anything that's not on the agenda? What do you got?
Okay, something that's not on the agenda. Excuse me. I have two brief astronomical announcements. On Sunday, the 20th will be the summer solstice, the first day of summer. And on Thursday, the 24th, there'll be a full supermoon.
What day is that? I love supermoons.
That's Thursday, the 24th.
Thursday, the 24th. Okay. Did you remember last month you told us about the moon, a full moon eclipse? Was that last month?
It was a solar eclipse right at dawn.
Oh, a solar eclipse. Okay.
Yeah.
My son lives in Okinawa and they had the full one there.
Oh, yeah.
They had a
Okay.
picture of it. The whole moon, or yeah, the whole thing was gone. It was really cool.
Okay.
It was very cool. So
Here it was about half, 55%. It was sort of cloudy here. A friend of mine in Laurel got a really nice picture.
okay, yeah, he had 100%, and
Yeah.
so there. So yeah, it was cool. So the 24th supermoon, cool.
And the 20th is the solstice.
Okay,
Hey, Jack, is a supermoon the same as a harvest moon?
No,
No.
what's the difference?
the harvest moon is seasonal. It's usually the September moon.
Okay.
The
It was October. I thought October was the harvest moon.
October. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know,
And
maybe.
people
But
before
does
electric light, you harvested your crops by the moon.
But is that a name change, or, I mean, the moon is just big, right?
It's the full moon of each month has a name.
Okay.
Oh,
But the
Orbit
October
of the
one
moon
was
is not a circle; it's an ellipse.
okay,
And you get a supermoon when the moon is closest to the Earth,
okay,
perigee. It's
right.
It's about 7% closer, which means it's 14% brighter.
Okay,
So NASA says harvest moon refers to the full bright moon that occurs closest to the start of autumn. So I guess depending on what, we're looking at September, October.
It's like Oktoberfest being in September.
But I think, wasn't the last harvest moon a supermoon too? Didn't it coincide with the supermoon? I thought that was the big thing.
I think so.
Maybe that's why you're getting them confused. Connor.
But
Got it.
because it
but
was
the
really
supermoons
big.
can occur at any time of year.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jack. Joe, you got your hand up?
Yes, I do, Mayor Furman. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a couple of comments about the virtual meetings. I've really appreciated them. I think this option should be really continued or explored seriously. And I'm glad that the council, for whatever reason, is going to continue this for some of the meetings ahead. After all, it's easier to, it's more difficult to smuggle a glass of wine into town hall during your meetings than it is to do it virtually.
So that's why you go off camera.
That's one of the benefits of that, and walking the dog, as you probably know. And it's also easier to mute you all on Zoom if need be, in the rare event that's necessary. So anyway, seriously, I think that the virtual option is a good one to not to lose sight of real quickly.
I don't think we'll ever go back to full every meeting being in person, and I know, especially during the winter months. I think we all enjoy, except for Connor, who's at work, enjoy finishing our meeting and already being home. So
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah,
But
I concur.
Now that you bring up the one of the benefits is the ability to mute us, and as somebody who's been muted enough recently, I will weigh that into my judgment.
Well, that's kind of an obvious benefit when you say it. And it's
Fair enough.
Just a couple of comments about the election. I thought it was well run, and I was very pleased that it was a competitive election again this year. And I hope that future elections are likewise competitive, and the playing overall was a high one, and I think that's very commendable. I kind of wish that there had been more thoughtful disagreement among the candidates. I attended much of the candidates forum and found that there was a lot of agreement among the candidates, and I think that healthy disagreement and dissent is really very valuable. And often the town council votes unanimously on issues, and I do like to see more dissenting viewpoints, and I hope that would be something that the candidates would consider in the future at these candidates forums, if they are continued in the fashion that they have been run in recent years. Mayor Furman, I just wanted to mention a couple of episodes having to do with fallen trees or fallen tree limbs in the south side of Kensington. One was a fallen tree, a town tree that fell on the house fell on the roof of a homeowner on Kent Street near Kensington Parkway Access Road, and the family was inside the house at the time. It was a town tree that the family had notified the town. My understanding was notified the town about the hazard the tree posed, and it one night during a heavy thunderstorm came crashing down on the household's roof, and leads me to wonder that episode, as well as another one in which a silver maple tree, large limb from a silver maple tree, came down, not in a storm, just on its own. Decayed limb fell on the electric wires on Frederick Avenue, causing a power outage for 5.5 hours among 51 families in this part of town. And I just wonder if the town has an inventory, or even considers planning to inventory its trees in town, looking for those that are particularly problematic and have the potential for creating problems, such as the one we saw on Kent Street at Kensington Parkway not so long ago. I think that there's a lot of elderly trees in town, and an inventory at least would be a great way to identify those potential hazards and begin to take them down. I realize from experience that it is typically a long process to remove a tree, and that involves an outside consultant to come in and take a look at them. And I hope that we're able to streamline the process in the future, because these events could be, I hope they're not repeated, but these events that I've just described were both, I think, avoidable.
Well, the tree on Kent Street that came down was on private property. It wasn't a town tree. So
right.
I don't think,
nonetheless, it was.
I understand, but it's not our job to go inspecting people's trees. Because
I don't think I said that. I don't think I
well,
suggested that.
you're asking us to go and inventory trees on people's
Town
properties.
trees on town property.
But yeah, but you mentioned Kent Street it is not a town tree. So
That was a town tree.
no, the one on Kent Street is not a town tree. It was in the property on not Kent, I'm sorry, Frederick Avenue. Sorry.
On Kent Street, it was a town
Kent
tree.
Street. But unfortunately, when the owner called to report the tree, they reported it as dead, and it wasn't dead. We actually sent Mulheron out. Matt can chime in if he wants, but the tree was not dead. Was it dangerous? Yeah, but the tree people were looking for a dead tree. So there was a bit of miscommunication. And if we had had an extra day, then we would have been able to go back out there and correct it. But unfortunately, they just mislabeled what the tree looked like.
Well, which makes my point that an inventory of town trees and their condition would be very advisable, and would be a handy way for the town to proceed in taking down trees, such as the one on Kent Street that was a hazard and was reported to the town. And semantic problems shouldn't be the issue that determines whether the tree is regarded or as a hazard or not. It was a hazard. The family was inside the house at the time, and it created quite a hazard, a real hazard.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I do. I have. Sorry, I missed the May meeting, because I understand that's where the town's contract with NZI was renewed, and this was not renewed under a competitive bid process, was it?
It was under the same contract that we had previously.
The piggybacking arrangement, but it wasn't a separate competitive bid process that NZI was determined to be the best bidder of the lot. Is that correct?
No, I mean, we didn't put it out for bid. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because this piggyback arrangement that the town has had with NZI for many years was meant to be a temporary arrangement. Was not meant to last for years and years and years without the benefit of a competitive bid. And I'm really disappointed that it's sort of become quasi-permanent now, in which the town does not seek bids for this kind of work. And I think we can do better. As I've said in years past, we can do better than NZI. And I think the way to do that is through competitive bidding. And I would love to hear the council commit that it will seek competitive bidding next time the NZI contract is up, which I believe would be in a year's time. I don't see how that can hurt. I think it'd be a benefit to the town and to the transparency of town governance.
I would just offer my
Go ahead.
one response, because I'm remembering our trash contract where we had a good trash contractor and we put it out to bid, and it was really hard to not take the bid of the lowest bidder, and they were very subpar. And I think they ended up going out of business. Somebody can correct that if I'm wrong, but in some ways I think they underbid what it took to service the contract. And so I hear the point. We want to be careful with the funds that we're put in charge of. But I also think that when you have a good contractor who has provided long, reliable service to the town, that we want to be careful about, especially when there's not a huge price increase year to year, year over year for this contract. We want to be careful about putting it out to the process that could repeat our trash experience.
Yeah, but we don't know that. We don't know if the trash experience, as you put it, is anywhere duplicative of the work that NZI does. And there are lots of contractors that do that kind of work. And I think that a bidding process would allow the lowest and best bidder to emerge. We don't know if NZI is the best bidder. We just know that it has had a nice relationship with the town for the last, several years. And it was meant to be temporary, and it's now become quasi-permanent, and we would benefit from seeking bids for that work.
Well, I don't think if we put out for bids, we would have gotten 2019 prices. And I know that you don't like NZI. You've made that very clear for a number of years. But I've told you, and I'm going to tell you again, you are the only one who has complained about NZI.
It doesn't matter, Mayor Furman. It doesn't matter. My complaint tonight has less to do with NZI than it does with the process that the town has engaged in to give the work to NZI without competitive bidding.
Matt, would you like to explain competitive bidding?
Sure. I'd like to clarify, the bid was awarded through competitive bidding. The bid was awarded to NZI Construction from the city of Tacoma Park in 2019. The previous bids that were awarded to NZI in previous years were bids that were awarded to them through Prince George's County. What our regulations allow us to do is take an existing bid from a larger organization. It is incredibly difficult for us to bid out specs. We have 2 administrative staff. We don't have the time or the scope to bid out specs that a Prince George's County or a city of Tacoma Park can. So what the council allows us to do is take an existing public bid, get the pricing, and allow for that bid contract to be awarded within the town. The existing bid to NZI that was awarded last month is for 2 years using 2019 pricing. It was a pretty good deal. It's up to the council if they want us to go to bid. Once this contract is up, as I've mentioned to the mayor and the council, NZI is a large corporation. They do most of their work in Prince George's County. I personally have been very happy with them. We've received, feedback from the residents that has been mostly positive. The one issue I do have with them is because they're a larger organization, we are kind of at the end of the line. So we tend to get our projects done in the fall instead of the summer. But, again, we don't have the staff to bid specs. We're learning that with our parapet veranda project right now. We've learned it in past bid processes with trash collection. And it's just a way for us to basically take advantage of the staff of other municipalities in the state. So.
And Matt, is this a practice that other municipalities use as well, other smaller municipalities use?
It's very common for the smaller municipalities to use piggybacking. Pretty much every vehicle the town has purchased in the last 12 years is off of a piggyback bid from either the state or Montgomery County. Again, we don't have the staff to bid specs. So what we do is we take, bids that have already been processed by larger governments or nonprofits and use that to our advantage.
Why then does NCI get to be the winning bidder year after year after year? And I don't know how long this goes back, Matt. Maybe it could be 8 years, it could be 10 years. My understanding was originally this was meant to be a temporary arrangement that has become, as I say, quasi-permanent. So why NCI all the time?
Again, I'm happy with the work they provide. They win bids with other jurisdictions that are very local to us. And that's what we award.
Yeah, we're at the end of the line, as you said.
One thing I will say about piggybacking that I've come to learn through my time on the council is one of the benefits that I see to the town in the ability to piggyback is that many of the jurisdictions' competitive bid processes that we are piggybacking off of are much larger jurisdictions that end up getting far better rates because the sheer amount and volume of work that they're putting into their specifications and performance of work statements are highly attractive to these companies. And we get the benefit of getting those more attractive rates that I don't know we would get with the relatively small amount of work that we would independently bid out ourselves. Coupled with what Matt said about the intensive labor and technical knowledge needed to write a bid, as well as the legalese that we would have to employ in making sure that the contract was proper. I've come to find that it really has been in the advantage of the town to use the piggybacking method of gaining access to vendors that we might otherwise not get attractive pricing from independently.
One last question. Are there any bids, competitive bids that the town seeks apart from this NZI arrangement?
The only one would have been recently is the portico, I believe.
Yeah, we recently bid out the veranda and parapet renovations at Town Hall. The bid spec document was over 120 pages. It took our town attorney almost 2 months to draft it. It has taken staff an incredible amount of time, and we still don't have the contract awarded. Again, we have 2 administrative staff. We cannot bid out every project, especially when a $100,000 repair job is 120 pages. Again, we use the information that's available to us, and by piggybacking off of large organizations is a great help to us and to the residents of the town by saving money and staff time. So,
but there are bid packages that the town has prepared.
Correct. There's a base template that we use, usually that another organization that would use. It's just very time consuming.
Thanks as always, Mayor Furman.
Thank you. Okay, does anybody else in the audience have a question that's not on the agenda or something? Not seeing any hands. Okay. We do not have any ordinances, resolutions, or regulations to approve this evening, so the next item up is adjournment. Somebody like to make a motion? Okay, we can stay
To adjourn.
Never been waiting for you, Bridget. Is there a second?
Was focused on
Second.
my goldfish.
You can't second your own motion.
I wasn't.
I will
Okay.
second.
Honor say, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you all very much. And we'll be in touch regarding the work session. Thank you.
Thank you.